Hey, 8th grade. So today in science, we're going to start talking about severe weather events. So yesterday we talked about reading a weather map, and today we're going to talk about those severe events. So what is considered a severe weather event? Some of the big ones that we hear about the most are hurricanes, tornadoes, including waterspouts, thunderstorms, and microbursts. So a hurricane is a tropical cyclone with winds of 119 kilometers per hour or higher. They begin over warm water as a low pressure area or a tropical disturbance. The winds spiral inward toward the area of low pressure at the center, which is called the eye. As a hurricane passes over land, it no longer has that warm, moist air to draw energy from, and it will start to weaken. Hurricanes that form over the Atlantic Ocean are steered by the easterly trade winds towards the Caribbean islands and the southeastern United States. So we had talked about the trade winds before, and we have those easterly trade winds that are steering any of these hurricanes towards the southeastern United States. So just a little bit on hurricane structure. In the middle you have the eye, and then where the eye meets those spiral rain bands, we have the eye wall, and then we have this counterclockwise rotation. So what are the weather conditions we need for a hurricane to form? They need 4 different things: low air pressure, warm temperatures, moist ocean air, and tropical winds near the equator. They form in the tropics over the warm ocean water, about 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 Celsius, and at latitudes between 8 degrees and 20 degrees. They form usually through June to November, which is considered the hurricane season. And the powerful storms are fueled by the heat energy that is released when water vapor condenses or turns into liquid water or rain. So we talked about the idea of condensation before, when it starts to cool and turns into a liquid form as the molecules come together. So what are the stages of development? So it starts as a tropical wave. It's a westward moving area of low pressure. As the warm, moist air over the ocean rises in the low pressure area, the cold air from above replaces it, and this produces really strong gusty winds and heavy rain and thunderclouds, and then it's called a tropical disturbance. As the pressure continues to drop and there are sustained winds over 38 miles per hour, it starts to become a tropical depression. When the cyclonic winds, or the winds that are rotating in a counterclockwise direction, have sustained speeds from 39 to 73, it's now called a tropical storm. Tropical storms are given names when they begin to have winds of this speed. The storm becomes a hurricane when there are sustained winds over 73 miles an hour. So it starts as a tropical wave, then becomes a tropical disturbance, then a tropical depression, a tropical storm, and then a hurricane. The exact location of a hurricane is easily tracked by scientists, but the direction, speed, and intensity of a storm can change really quickly. So predicting exactly where a storm will travel in the future is not easy because it uses modeling, and like we talked about yesterday, modeling always has some types of inaccuracies. Weather forecasts can warn people long in advance that a tropical storm may be approaching, but a storm can suddenly change course. So when we are talking about hurricanes, we use a Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. And as you can see, a Category 1 has dangerous winds and will produce some damage, and your winds are between 74 and 95 miles an hour. Once it passes that 95 threshold up to 110, you have what's called a Category 2. And this is where you also have more damage from higher wind speed. Once it passes that 110 and passes over into like the 111, 129, you now have a major Category 3 hurricane. And this is when trees can be snapped or uprooted. Water and electricity are usually unavailable for several days or weeks after the storm. Moving on up to a Category 4, you have catastrophic damage with the loss of most of the roof structure and some exterior walls on houses. Once again, the trees are an issue, and then power outages will last weeks to possibly months depending on the area, and some of the area will become uninhabitable for weeks or months. And then the strongest, a Category 5, which is 157 miles per hour or higher. This is when a high percentage of homes will actually be destroyed with total roof failure and wall collapse. Power outages last for weeks to months again, and most of the area also becomes uninhabitable for weeks or months. So this is just some satellite imagery that has been collected of hurricanes in the past hitting the East Coast. And this is an image of some of the projections that they've done with projecting paths. They've become more and more accurate, but like we said, they can suddenly change depending on the inputs going into the system. And as we all know, there are many destructive outcomes from hurricanes. So let's move on to talk about tornadoes. It's a rapidly whirling funnel-shaped cloud that reaches down from a thunderstorm to touch Earth's surface. The most violent tornadoes are capable of tremendous destruction with wind speeds of up to 300 miles per hour. In an average year, there's about 1,000 tornadoes that are reported nationwide. So what has to be there for a tornado to form? They form from thunderstorms, and you need warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico and cool, dry air from Canada, maritime, tropical, and continental polar. When these two air masses meet, they create a lot of instability in the atmosphere. The change in the wind direction and an increase in wind speed with increasing height creates an invisible horizontal spinning effect in the lower atmosphere. Rising air within the updraft tilts the rotating air from the horizontal to the vertical. You're going to watch a video on this later. An area of rotation, 2 to 6 miles wide, now extends through much of the storm. Most strong and violent tornadoes form within this area of strong rotation. So what are the most likely areas? In the Midwest, we have an area called Tornado Alley, and this is where a lot of the worst tornadoes can occur. And then we do have some common areas as well, noted in the reddish-orange color outside of that. So when we are scaling a tornado, there's also a scale, and it's called the Fujita scale of tornado intensity, and it starts with an F0, where you have light damage 65 to 85 miles per hour, an F1 going all the way up to an F5, increasing up to 318 miles an hour, with the damage increasing as you go. Once you hit about a F3, cars can be lifted off the ground, just to show you the strength of the tornado that you're working with at that point. So this is some images of tornadoes and the destructive outcomes that can happen due to them. Go ahead and move on to your worksheets for today. Once you've completed those, there'll be 2 different videos for you to watch. You don't have to get through both, but they're both really cool, and I think you'll enjoy them.